Hello everyone and welcome back. Hope we're having a great day and we're all doing well. So we are just a week away from the reveal of the brand new season of Rainbow Six Siege Year 8 Season 3, and something we will be getting at this date of the reveal is the new cinematic for this season. This will be our next major part in Rainbow Six lore. As you're probably aware, I cannot wait for that. I'm sure a lot of you cannot wait as well. So I want to make a video recapping Year 8 of Rainbow Six Siege lore up to the current point, which is at the end of Operation Dread Factor. Now, I'm not going to be covering the entirety of the lore. I have a full video for that. You can check that out. A lot of you have probably seen that, but if you haven't, I recommend watching that first. However, since that video came out, there is some new pieces of lore information. I have made separate videos about them, but I thought I should compile it all into one video. And if you have seen that entire lore video, this is sort of like a part 2, which will continue after that. You can watch this one as a refresher, and this will set you up for the lore coming in Year 8 Season 3. And I just want to quickly say, if this is your first time on the channel, be sure to hit that sub button since we're trying to hit 100k by the end of the year. As well as this, consider dropping a like and maybe even a comment since it really does help with the YouTube algorithm. And so, here is the story of Year 8 of Rainbow Six Siege so far. So a whole year has passed since Rainbow and Nighthaven went their separate ways, and the infrastructure of Rainbow has changed. Director of Rainbow Harry Pandey split Rainbow up into 4 separate squads. Wolfguard led by Doc, Redhammer led by Thermite, Viperstrike led by Hibana, and ghosteyes led by Kaze. After suspecting Nighthaven of assassinating the Japanese CEO of Yahata Data Services, Masayuki Yahata, Rainbow learned that Nighthaven weren't behind this case, and Nighthaven gear was stolen and used in that assassination. Rainbow got intel of an arms deal selling stolen Nighthaven gear, and this is when they were going to intercept. This would be a joint operation between Redhammer and ghosteyes, with both leaders of those squads, Thermite and Kaze, taking part in the mission. Thermite would also assign 2 Redhammer operators to this mission, Ash and Sledge, and Kaze would assign 1 ghosteyes member, Sophia. This came to a total of 5 operators on this mission. The goal was simple: extract stolen Nighthaven gear. At this time, Director of Rainbow Harry would be at his home in Oxford whilst his mission took place. This is when a mysterious masked man would enter his office and show him a live feed of Thermite's body cam on his phone. And now back at the mission, our operators were doing what they do best. They successfully neutralized every single enemy, and it seemed like that was the mission done. Take the Nighthaven gear and call it a day. However, that is when their plans were cut short, as it turns out there was a bomb rigged in this building, and it was only seconds away from detonating. Our operators tried to flee, however they would get caught in the blast. This is when we cut back to Harry back at his home in Oxford, after witnessing our operators be caught in the explosion. As far as Harry's aware, those operators may be dead. This is when this man reveals that the stolen Nighthaven gear was nothing more than bait. And that is when Harry reveals what this guy's name is, Deimos, implying that Harry already has a history with this guy. This is when Deimos reveals that he was an ex-Rainbow operative, and he's angered what Harry has done to Rainbow. He feels like Harry has completely disgraced the unit, and Deimos is going to cleanse it. And in Deimos' words, every operator will die. This is where Harry is confident in the leaders he has chosen for the squads, that they will be able to survive on their own, and the squad is stronger than ever. And in the final moments of the cinematic, this happens.
Now, if you don't mind, I happen to find you exceedingly fucking boring.
Yeah, well, don't tell me when I was swinging.
And that was our setup for Year 8 of Rainbow Six lore. We have a brand new villain, the director is dead, and the future of the team is uncertain. Our operators will then learn what happened to Harry, and about this new threat which is coming after them. And our operators will take no time to fight back. Viperstrike leader Hibana will assign Capitao and her brand new recruit Brava, who is also the cousin of Capitao, to come alongside her on a strike against Deimos. They manage to infiltrate their way onto a cargo plane being operated by Deimos, which is full of valuable items using to fund his operations, such as bills and gold bars. As well as this, we get to see some of the weapons he is working with, as well that he isn't just working alone, there is also soldiers there as well. This is starting to give us a real big scope into the operation he is running. Brava claims that they should take Deimos alive, however Capitao wants to take the kill shot for what he did to Harry. However, it seems like Hibana agrees with Brava and they should take him in alive. Brava uses her clutch drone to hack one of the vehicles being transported on the ship and to use its turret against the soldiers. Whilst Brava and Capitao deal with the soldiers, Hibana makes her way to Deimos. She uses her Cairo pellets to open up the door he is behind. However, this is when Deimos opens up the cargo door, messing up their plans. Hibana gets hit into a crate and gets knocked out. Capitao loses his footing and almost falls off the plane, and that is when he is saved by Brava. However, they aren't in a safe position yet. Brava is in a position to take Deimos out, however that would mean letting go of her cousin Capitao and letting him die. This was simply a decision she couldn't make, and Deimos managed to escape. However, they did manage to financially hurt him, since all the cargo on board is now in possession of Rainbow. However, Deimos lives to fight another day. Hibana would wake up and our operators would leave this situation alive. We would then learn more about the aftermath of this in the battle pass for Operation Commanding Force, and the first part of this is a little paragraph titled First Blood, and this is from the perspective of Brava. And what she says is, there's no other way to say this, Deimos got the better of Viperstrike. He got the better of me. I'm not sure any of us have ever faced an enemy of his caliber, one who seems to know our every move before we make it. As long as he is out there, people will die. Deimos set his sights on Rainbow, killing one, injuring many. If I had stuck to the mission, Capital would be gone too. We have to remain vigilant, or this could be the end of Rainbow. Deimos has mercenaries, vehicles, artillery, financing. This is not a one-man operation. Someone knows something, a weakness we can exploit, an asset we can destroy, a plane we can prepare for. We just need to find one thing and we can win. I won't rest until he's brought to justice. None of us will. And then we start to learn a bit more about some of the Viperstrike operators in the Battle Pass descriptions. I'm not going to go massively in depth through these since they do have their own videos. However, I will be reading these out just so you all can hear them since they are still very interesting and some of them are really important for the story going forward. Firstly, we have Azami talking about Yahata. Of course, Yahata was the person who was assassinated, and Azami was his private bodyguard, and she was friends with him on a personal level as well. And she says that Yahata told me he didn't want to be seen as a snake. Ironic that I have now became one to avenge his death. And that is because she is part of Viperstrike, and a snake is a big part of the name and logo. Azami also says, I was promised vengeance. When the time comes, I won't hesitate to take the shot. And there's also a bit from Brava talking to Azami, and she says, if we're going to take him down, we should do it by the book. This is not time for vigilante justice, Azami. So it does seem like there's a little bit of turmoil between Brava and Azami, since Azami is saying if she was in that situation, she would have taken the shot. But then you have to consider, would that have been worth taking the life of Capital? Here we have a bit from Brava talking about Hibana, and she says, Hibana is a leader who focuses on what can be done, not on who to blame. How does she stay so calm with everything going on? There's also a little bit by Hibana saying, gear for any opportunity, ground, air, or sea. Wherever Deimos surfaces next, we'll be ready. Next we have a little bit from Jaeger talking about Mira. We don't really get to see much of Jaeger in the lore. And what he says, Mira pretends she's tired of seeing me in the workshop, yet she keeps asking me to review these prototypes. I think she misses the camaraderie. And we have another one talking about Mira, this time Hibana, and she says, it's time to get out of the lab, Mira. The squad needs you. I need you. It is quite interesting because it seems like Mira is going to have more of a hands-on role, since for the most part in the lore, she has been in the lab developing new technology. Next we have one Mira talking about her new uniform, and it says, different color, same outfit. Some variables are better left alone, to make space for what needs to change. We have a little simple one by Hibana, and it says, breathe in, breathe out, focus on the target. She's a background in archery, so it seems like she takes that same philosophy into her gunfights. Next up, we have a little bit from Capital, and he says, Hibana pushed for this operation. Without her, we wouldn't have been on that plane, and the money would still be in Deimos' hands. We have another small little quote from Hibana, and it said, the Viperstrike is fast and deadly. Admirable qualities. Just giving a little insight as to why it was called Viperstrike. Next up, we have one from Maestro, and this one is a little bit important. It says, Deimos made it personal when he hurt Seamus. That's Sledge. Hibana, let's put this fucker in the ground. I'll be waiting for your signal. I felt like this one was quite important because although we didn't see Sledge get caught in the explosion in the cinematic itself, it does confirm that Sledge, Zofia, and Kavera were also in that explosion. And that explosion has affected other operators. Maestro and Sledge are really good friends. We know that in their story. So the fact that happened to Sledge has given even more motive for Maestro to fight back. And that is all the small pieces of lore information we got from the Commanding Force Battle Pass. The next part after this was actually the comic we got in mid-season. And this will show Viperstrike going for another attack on Deimos. This comic book starts in Hereford Military Hospital, the same place where Hereford Base is located. We can overhear Hibana and Thermite talking to each other, where Hibana says, someone planted intel in Deimos' plane, the same plane which Viperstrike just infiltrated. She says it contained the geolocation of a compound in Brazil. If there's any intel to gather, it is there. Thermite says, can it be accessed remotely? But Hibana says, no, it's completely off the grid. Brava will lead a reconnaissance operation to find out more. However, that is where Thermite shuts this down, and we learn that Ash was actually put in a coma from that explosion, and this has filled Thermite with a lot of rage. Thermite says, Hibana, that son of a bitch put Ash in a coma. He killed Harry. Brava had a line of fire in Deimos, and she didn't take the shot. Hibana says, I'm aware of what's at stake, Thermite. This is a Viperstrike operation. You do not get a say. Then Thermite says, new intel says Deimos is getting ready for another strike as we speak. We need a win here. And that is when Brava interrupts and says, then allow me to take point. She continues to say, sir, the clock is ticking. I know the area, the people, and how to access the compound unnoticed. With me leading, we save weeks of prep, weeks we don't have. Like you said, now or never. Thermite unwittingly agrees, meaning that Brava now has a clearance of both Thermite and Hibana. Hibana says, there you go, find us something, Brava, but be careful, this could be a trap. Thermite says, and if you see Deimos, you pull the fucking trigger. Brava responds by saying, yes captain, I won't make the same mistake twice. So with this intel which someone planted on Deimos' plane, it gave our operators the location of Brazil, more specifically, a city called Ouro Preto. Brava is leading a strike team alongside Jaeger and Alibi, in which they are going to infiltrate this compound. Jaeger and Brava make their way up to the compound, whilst Alibi holds back and provides support from afar. Alibi says that she is in position ready to provide cover fire, however that is when someone behind her points a gun to her head. He takes the shot, but it turns out it was a Prisma. The real Alibi was behind him and takes him out instead. However, it is now open fire and Brava and Jaeger are in a gunfight. Both Brava and Jaeger get pinned down, and Brava exclaims that she needs to get into that building. Reinforcements could show up at any moment. They're putting up a good fight, but they are still pinned down. Brava says if we don't get that intel, more will die by the hand of Deimos. We do whatever it takes. Brava swings a corner, taking out a few enemies, whilst Alibi and Jaeger provide support from behind. Brava then throws a grenade, blowing up a group of hostiles. However, one of these hostiles throw a grenade back. That is when it is caught by Jaeger's ADS, then Alibi neutralizes the threat. All three of our operators claim it is clear, and they decide it's time to head into the compound. However, at this time, an explosive is making its way to the compound. This blows up the compound, and Jaeger and Brava get caught in the blast. Now, it does seem like they are uninjured, but the intel has been destroyed. At least, that's what they think. A silhouetted figure, who seems to be the one who blew up the compound, stands away in the distance. Our three operators pursue after them and hold them at gunpoint. This is when this person says, you don't want to shoot, trust me. Brava then says, give me a good reason. This figure then says, I don't know how, but they found out you were coming and laced that building with explosives. I blew it up to save your lives. Brava responds by saying, well that's a little convenient. Another option is that you knew what we were after and destroyed our intel. This is when this person says, I didn't destroy the intel. I am the intel. I'm the one who planted the geolocation. Then why all this? Why not come to us directly? Says Brava. I was stuck. Deimos, he's everywhere. It's a long story. My only option was to get your attention on this compound and hope you send a team. I can help you stop him. And with this response by that mysterious figure, we cut to what I can only assume is Hereford Base or another undisclosed Rainbow facility, where we see both Captain Thermite and Captain Hibana in a room. Brava enters and Hibana says, did you find something that can help us catch Deimos? Brava responds by saying, not something, someone. Hibana, Thermite, me, and then the comic ends. We will then go on to learn that this mysterious figure is a man by the name of Emil Svensson, who will go by the codename of Fenrir. Svensson, who comes from a scientific and military background, became an outcast in every field he was in. He was really interested in neurochemistry, enrolling in as many science classes as he could back when he was in education, and after he left, he would join the Swedish Armed Forces. He was a communicator in the Special Operations Group, and he wanted to expand his skill set and aim to develop strategies that would help improve the performance of his peers. This is when he would start to pursue a project to create a formula that would alter soldiers' emotions. However, every time he pitched this, he was denied, and he was so insistent about it that it would eventually lead to him being discharged from the military. He was an outcast to his family, the scientific community, and the military community. With not a lot of options left, yet still wanting to pursue his research, this is when Fenrir gets an offer and the funding to do this research by Deimos. Now to Fenrir, this is great. There is someone who's also interested in his work, and he's given them the facility and the funding to do so. Fenrir wanted to make this to make the world a better place. However, what he didn't realize was the person funding him was using his expertise for a different intention. Whilst doing the research, there was a prototype which made anyone who inhaled it hallucinate and become extremely violent, which was simply just part of the process and a little speed bump along the way. This was not intended for use. However, when Deimos learned of this prototype, he took Fenrir out of the room, locked the doors, and unleashed it on all the other scientists. This is when Fenrir really saw what Deimos was using him for, and now Fenrir is worried that his work is in the wrong hands. Fenrir would learn more information about Deimos and what his plan is against Rainbow. This is when Fenrir would plant the tracker on Deimos' plane, hoping that Rainbow would intercept it. Unluckily, they did. Rainbow would make their way to Brazil, and this is when Fenrir would take his work and run. And this is when he would blow up the compound and intercept Viperstrike. And then, as we know, they would take him back to Rainbow. And now, although Fenrir is with Rainbow now, that doesn't mean everyone trusts him. Thermite, alongside Buck, done an extensive interview with him to make sure that he wasn't a spy for Deimos. Thermite and Buck would clear him of being a spy and do believe his intentions intentions are good. However, that won't stop criticism from other operators, and I've made an entire video showing what operators do and don't trust Fenrir. Fenrir would tell Thermite that Deimos does not have any of this formula, and Fenrir managed to take all of it with him, and he says that he wants to help Rainbow stop Deimos. Now, Fenrir would make another prototype version that would not make people violent, rather it would just block their vision, and that is the same version we use in the game. And as well as this, Thermite would recruit him to redhammer, again to the criticism of some other operators. But Thermite sees Fenrir as a key component to taking down Deimos. And now with Fenrir's introduction, we can take a look at the battle pass for Dread Factor, which gives us some more information. Now firstly, we have a paragraph from the perspective of Fenrir, and this is titled Turncoat. He says, "I'm used to being doubted. You could say that's how Deimos got to me. He did not question my intentions or fight my ideas. He manipulated me. I did not see his shadow until it was too late, and my colleagues paid the price. How could I let it happen? That is not who I am. I had to remember that. I may not be able to undo what he did, but I can help ensure he is stopped. That's why I looked for Rainbow. My ambitions can wait. With redhammer, I can make things right. If they let me. I can't blame anyone for doubting me, or my intentions. Military service was never my priority. All I can offer is what I have. Information, experience, and an intimate relationship with fear." And in this battle pass, we get to learn a lot of new information. Firstly, we have one from Fenrir talking about Kapkan. He says, "Kapkan is one of the few who wasn't bothered by my joining. He calls me Puppy. I'm not sure if he's mocking me or being nice." Next up, we have a bit from Kapkan, and he says, "Deimos isn't hunting. He's playing with us." Alibi says, "I know a thing or two about misdirection. I'm not ready to trust Fenrir." Maestro says, "I appreciate what you're trying to do, Arya, but I do not need you mothering me. I'm fine." This could play on from the one from the previous battle pass about Sledge being injured and Maestro being upset about it. There's a little one from Thermite, which seems to be a note he sent to Twitch, and it says, "Concerns heard. Attached is one FNAT Dreadmind model. Sync with Lion and get back to me with results." We have a little quote from Fenrir, and it says, "Fear is a fascinating emotion. It stares into the core of a person and forces a choice. Grow or forever be trapped." Jackal has something to say about Fenrir. He says, "When you work with an informant, you don't give them a badge. I hope redhammer knows what they're doing." And this battle pass is quite interesting because we get the perspective of non-redhammer operators, for example Jackal, who is part of Viperstrike. We also have a little bit of Lion talking to Jackal, and he says, "Final warning, take those vacation days or I'll be knocking on your door to put you to sleep myself." And by that I can assume that Jackal is just too invested in this, and he's too busy trying to take down Deimos that he's not even taking time for himself off. We have one from Twitch, and she says, "I'd like to sit down with Fenrir, nerd to nerd, hear what his research motivations are for myself." And now we have one by Maverick saying, "Where the hell is Nook?" And this is playing into the whole story arc from last year of Grim and Nook. If you haven't seen my entire lore video, that won't really make sense to you, so definitely check that out. But it seems like Kavera directly responds to this question by saying, "Nook is on leave. I won't be answering any questions." That is because Grim found Nook's identity and threatened to leak it, so it seems like Nook is taking some time off. We have some little bits from Nighthaven as well. This one is just a fun little remark from Osa about Ace, and she says, "Credit where it's due, Hoagland's idiocy is keeping the mood light," seemingly implying that the mood in Nighthaven isn't the best. We have a little bit from Callie as well talking about the whole Deimos situation with Rainbow, and it says, "If Rainbow wants a mess, they are welcome to it. We have other business to attend to," implying that Nighthaven aren't going to get involved. We have another little bit by Osa here, and it says, "Callie doesn't like being caught off guard, and she isn't one to forget." I don't know if this is talking about Deimos taking her off guard and stealing her equipment, or ghosteyes taking her off guard on the runway. We have a little bit by Ace, and he says, "Don't tell Callie, but I'm glad Rainbow took that mission. That explosion could have damaged my moneymaker." Callie has something to say about Ash being in the coma, and she says, "Don't tap out yet, princess. We have unfinished business." Sort of implying that, yeah, although Ash and Callie pretty much hate each other, she doesn't want to see her die. And this also confirms that Ash is still in the coma at this point in time. We have a nice little one from Flores, who is a close friend of Ash, and he says, "Hey Capitana, when you wake up, I'll make you a whole buffet. Just come back to us." Next up, we have one from Oryx talking about Fenrir, and he says, "That look of isolation in Fenrir's eye, I know it all too well." That is because Oryx was held in isolation for many years of his life, and it seems like he can sympathize with Fenrir. Kaid says, "The pain of failure never fully leaves you, Thermite. Just be sure it does not cloud your judgment." As you're going to see, Kaid is one of the biggest critics of Fenrir being in redhammer. Kaid is also in redhammer, and it makes sense that Kaid is sort of contesting the leadership of Thermite, since Kaid is a leader in his own right at the fortress. Nomad has something to say about Kaid, and she says, "Kaid is an unparalleled teacher and mentor. Don't be too quick to dismiss his wisdom." And it's interesting because Nomad and Oryx were students of Kaid, yet Oryx seems to support Fenrir, and Nomad and Kaid don't. And Oryx sort of chimes in again, and he says, "I'm not a fan of all this infighting. At the fortress, we had a way to settle this kind of matter. Brutal, but effective." We have a little bit by Fuse talking about Fenrir, and he says, "Fenrir said goodbye to Deimos by blowing up his whole compound in Brazil. What's more redhammer than that, seeing that Fuse is showing support for Fenrir. Blackbeard has something to say about him as well, and he says, I've met a lot of nasty characters in my time. Svensson is less of a wolf and more of a runt who got left behind. Poor guy. So it seems like Blackbeard also trusts him. And this next one is quite interesting because we get our first little bit from Sledge since the explosion back at the beginning of year 8. And he says, 2 broken ribs, a fractured wrist, and a few pieces of shrapnel lodged in my leg. Deimos should have used a bigger bomb. And can I say, as a fellow Scotsman, that is the most Scottish reply to being blown up ever. And the final little bit in this battle pass is a bit of Thorn talking about Sledge, who is one of our good friends. And she says, Sledge is as stubborn as they come. Doc told him to get some rest, but he's already out there swinging that hammer. I'm not about to play nurse. And a lot of that battle pass was really good in not only giving us info about Redhammer, but a lot of the squads in total. This showed us Nighthaven's perspective on Deimos, Ash is still in a coma, and Sledge's injuries, as well as other stuff. And the final piece of year 8 lore we have currently until we get the next season is the comic book for Operation Dread Factor. This really sets up the next season, so be sure to listen to the end. This comic book starts off in Costa Brava in Spain. Here we can see Fenrir, now an active member of Redhammer, scoping out a location. We can hear him talking to himself in his head, and he says 2 families, 8 hostages. Contained room with 1 point of exit, the whole way to the pier. How do we get the hostages out safely? That is when his name gets called from the distance, and we see that is Kaze. We now see that Redhammer are on an operation to save hostages. Fenrir then says to himself, Kaze, great leader, doesn't like me very much. Sitrep, says Kaze. 4 hostiles, very capable. Our dialogue with them indicates they will kill hostages if necessary. No demands other than a boat out of here, says Fenrir. And back in his head, he says, why would radicals with this level of training target civilians and make no demands? That is when Captain Thermite comes over the computer and says, projected outcomes, team leader. And Kaze says, best case, 2 hostages dead. Worst case, all of them. Amara chimes in by saying, long range comms are down. Something from inside the restaurant is creating interference. Then the hostage takers come over the radio and say, hello, cops? Fenrir picks up and says, hello, this is Svensson speaking. They reply by saying, bring the boat. In his head, he's thinking, delay them. Buy time. He responds by saying, as I said earlier, these things take time. No more time. If the boat isn't here in 5 minutes, we kill a hostage, says the hostile. He dropped the connection. He'll do it, says Fenrir. Kaze says, call the boat. Group up, it's time. Kaze starts to inform the team what's going to happen. He says, the tangos move in 5. If they make it to the pier, we lose our execution window and should expect the worst. Any last minute suggestions? Fenrir, who is still feeling guilty from his scientific colleagues being killed by Deimos, steps in and said, I have one, let's use my dread mine. No one else? I read the brief on you, Fenrir. I know what your toxin does. It's chemical warfare. We could save everyone, says Fenrir. This is a new iteration. It causes disorientation, confusion. It will provide an opening we currently don't have. And expose hostages to a chemical agent? Enlighten me as to how that aligns with Rainbow's MO, says Kaze. Fenrir responds by saying, there are no lasting harmful side effects. I tested it on myself to be sure. Please, Kaze, if there's even a remote chance this works, Kaze butts in by saying, it's still a no for me, but we're a team. What do you all think? Goyo says, I wouldn't mind if those kids still had parents at the end of the day. And Buck and Amaru agree. Kaze seems to reluctantly agree and says, then it's decided. You don't get to fail here. Understood? Yes, understood, says Fenrir. There's work to be done. Let's move. We then see our operators make their way to the building. As Oryx, Buck, Amaru, and Goyo scale the building, Fenrir and Kaze make their way around the side. That is when Kaze starts to drill a hole in the side of the building, and Fenrir places one of his dread mines inside. That is when he claims he is ready, and Kaze says, hold, here they come. As the hostiles start to take the hostages outside to make their way to the boat, the dread mine activates. Whilst the hostiles get engulfed in the hallucination gas, the rest of Redhammer enter the building and take them out. This results in no hostage casualties. After the successful mission, Fenrir says thank you, Kaze, but Kaze just simply walks away, and Fenrir says to himself, still not a fan. Then Fenrir's attention sort of shifts, and he says there is still the mystery as to why these people were targeted. Fenrir makes his way over to a hostage and says, I'm sorry to bother you, but this is important. Did they make any requests of you or say anything unusual? I'm sorry, they threatened our kids. I had to tell them. Tell them what? I work at Yahata Data Services, specifically on the Rainbow account. I relay training information to agencies with potential operators for the program. I am so sorry. What did you tell them? I told them when the next training would happen, and where. A codename, I think. A place called Tower. And with that has been the setup for Year 8 Season 3 of Rainbow Six Siege, where Deimos is seemingly targeting the tower, the training facility in South Korea, and if you don't know, the new operator is going to be South Korean. We don't know where this story is going to go. Ubisoft have been posting teasers every day for the new season, but we don't know much about the new operator yet. We don't even know the new operation's name, but we have a feeling that this new operator might also be part of Redhammer, but that is not 100% confirmed yet. We will have to wait and see more. And with that is the story of Year 8 of Rainbow Six Siege up up until the end of Operation Dread Factor. So be sure to let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Are you excited for Year 8 Season 3 of Rainbow Six Siege lore? I'm really interested and I can't wait to see more. So be sure to drop a like on this video if you did enjoy, subscribe for more Rainbow Six lore content, and be sure to drop a comment letting me know your thoughts. Have an incredible rest of your day. I shall catch you later. I love you all. Peace.